This back to school season, spend less on your kids with Amazon. I remember when my sister begged for the shiniest backpack guaranteed to spark success. Pricey, and it was gone by October. Skip the splurge. Amazon's back to school hub has notebooks, pens, even goal setting journals at wallet friendly prices and fast delivery, so you can focus on chasing bigger dreams. So remember, with Amazon's low back to school prices, just spend less on your kids, because every dollar you don't spend on them is a dollar you haven't spent on them.
Hey, dream drivers. I'm just going to be honest with you guys. The other day I had this moment where I asked myself something I've never said out loud before, at least not publicly, and I want to talk about that today. We're going to be having a solo episode where I'm going to be diving into something that I think some of you also may be feeling like. We've been dream driving for a long time together. This podcast is almost 10 years old, and I had this thought, and I just really wanted to kind of work it out in real time with you all. Before we get into today's episode, as always, I want to just say thank you once again if you are a returning listener for listening to Dreams and Drive, the podcast where you learn how to take your dreams from park to drive. If you are not already following us on social media, please make sure that you are. We are Dreams and Drive across all the socials, and I'm going to be having more call to actions from you all. So I want to make sure that you are really, really, really just engaged as much as possible. So follow us on social media at Dreams and Drive across all those platforms. Then also, please make sure you're signed up for our email list. You can sign up at dreamsanddrive.com/join. That's dreamsanddrive.com/join. All right. So the question that I asked myself that I haven't really talked about publicly is this. I had to ask myself, am I a lost cause? Is this podcast, the Dreams and Drive podcast, one that I've been working on since January 1st, 2016, is it still worth it? Does anyone even care anymore? And I think if you've been a long-time listener of the show, you've probably heard me talk about this a lot this year, but I don't think I really just publicly said yo, I don't want to do this anymore. Or I don't think I've publicly said this just doesn't make any sense. I feel like I'm just right. And maybe you've never asked those exact questions, but if you ever poured your heart into something and then looked around and you were just like, what's the point? You know what this moment feels like, where you really are just so close to giving up and just being like, maybe this is all life has for me in this arena. Maybe it's just not supposed to happen. This episode is going to be this version of talking through this, and I'm going to be giving you the steps that I'm taking and just talking you through how this looks like for someone like myself who has this platform, probably very successful in your eyes, but there's things that I'm working through. And I'm going to be talking about the evolution and all of that. So please stay tuned. I want to take you behind this moment. I want to talk to you about what triggered it. I want to talk to you about what I discovered underneath it all. And then lastly, I'm going to talk to you about why I'm not giving up. And I think it's something that I hope that if you are feeling like you need to give up, you don't. Because honestly, I don't think I'm a lost cause. Although I may feel like saying it, I think maybe me even just putting the question out there is me just knowing that I don't really believe that. But it's also having to talk through it also gives myself the validation of, all right, you're not a lost cause, but maybe this dream is just evolving. And I think that's the part, the acceptance of the evolution, that is difficult for a lot of us. A lot of us are not realizing that we have to succumb to the evolution, and maybe even my desire and the ambition that is connected to that, and this pre-described timeline that I have in my head, all that has changed, and I need to be accepting of the revolution. So the question here today is, am I a lost cause, or is the dream just evolving? Let's get into it. All right, so let's talk about the doubt. So for a long time, I would say that I was filled with a lot of doubt when it comes to this podcast. it started with like the numbers, like, over the years, just seeing my numbers go down, having hit like this steady high, and then just realizing, wait, what's going on? Or maybe it's like even just being on social media, constantly consuming all of everyone else's stuff and just being like, wow, this person's blown up and I feel stagnant, or this person started where I am and now they've launched product lines, they've done this, or this podcaster has been going and just seems to be having more downloads, or hey, this person who's not even a podcaster is now popping out with a podcast and is not even that good, but they seem like they're doing well and they seem like they're getting the external validation and the numbers and all that stuff that goes with it. That was one thing that really contributed to my doubt. I also felt like I had this moment where, like, every time it seemed like I was trying to go hard for the podcast, something happened. So I'm going to talk to you about something I never shared with any of you guys before. But last September, I remember I had this moment where I'm like, all right, the kids are going to bed. It's cool. I'm focused. I'm going to get shit done. I got out my hard drive, I have an external hard drive that I store all of like my past episodes on. I had it out. I was gonna go back and do some things with some past episodes. I took it out the cases. I keep it in a case. If you have an external hard drive, you have to really protect it. I was about to plug it into my computer, and when I tell you, I watch it in slow motion. It went boom, 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 plap. It just dropped on the floor, and I screamed because I knew that could be bad. I tried automatically plugging it into my computer, and it just started spinning and it wouldn't read. And over the next course of the next 6 months, I did everything I could to save this hard drive. I brought it to a specialist. I sent it into somewhere else. Like, I tried to do so much, and everyone told me that the files were irretrievable. If you are a hard drive expert and you think that you could help me save this hard drive, please let me know. But it was just another, like, damn, like, wow, like, here's all my life's work. I'm putting that in quotation marks. My life's work just legit crashing in 1 second. I couldn't help but feel like, wow, maybe that's a sign. There's just been so many things over the past year, and just even other things we'll talk about later, that's been leading to this slow drip of self-doubt. And I found myself like really thinking, like, have I missed my moment? Has the moment missed me? Maybe 2017, 2018, 2019 were my heydays, and that's just all that I'll ever be. Is my message too quiet for the algorithm? And I say that because on social media, like, I just feel like, it can be really inundated with people who are like more creative than me, more hustling in the fact of like they're most social media friendly. Social media has changed, and I would not say I am a content creator, but I would say I really need to be a smart marketer for my podcast and my platform. And just wondering, like, should I be doing more? Should I be more trendy, more TikTok-y? Am I just talking into the void? Like, is it just going to be the same 10 people who I know are going to listen to my podcast right now, right? Hey, Ashley, hey, Takia, hey, all of you guys, like, hey, it's like, I don't know. Am I not focused enough? Is there anyone even listening? All these things are just things that I've been thinking about. And so I really had to, like, take a breath. I had to take a breath. So let's just take a breath together. Like, if you're feeling like this, if these waves of stuff are just coming onto you, take a breath. Another one. Take another deep breath. I almost let that lie, that whisper of, you're a lost cause, this is over, become me. It almost convinced me to pack up so many times, guys. Like, all those times where there have been weeks and you haven't heard Dreams and Drive, or I've gone quiet, like, even beyond me just being busy, I think part of me is just like, it doesn't even matter. And it's also why sometimes I'll doubt posting on social media if I feel like things aren't going to get the engagement. Or if I post on something and then it doesn't really, people don't see it, I'll take it down. I had to pause. And I had to ask myself a question that I think a lot of us need to do a lot of times. Like, we have all this doubt. We don't know what to do with the doubt, or we listen to the doubt too much, and then we get nowhere. So I had to, like, ask myself a question And I want you to tell me, what do you think that question is? We're about to go on a quick break from one of our partners, but when we come back, we're going to be diving into that question and how I'm working through it.
This back to school season, spend less on your kids with Amazon. Dream drivers, let's talk smart money moves. One year, my cousin insisted on a designer binder that cost more than my LLC filing fee, then left it on the bus. Had I checked Amazon first, I'd have scored the same vibe for less, plus everything else in one cart. Their back to school storefront lets you filter by grade, color, or budget. Reviews steer you clear of duds, and fast shipping gets it to you before your next brainstorming session. Save cash, save time, fuel the hustle. So remember, with Amazon's low back to school prices, just spend less on your kids because every dollar you don't spend on them is a dollar you haven't spent on them. What's up, dream drivers? Life's all about making bold moves and investing in your dreams, right? Whether you're taking on a new chapter, like welcoming a growing family, relocating to a fresh city, or stepping up to your next big adventure, you need a ride that's ready to go the distance with you. The Toyota Grand Highlander is designed with more space for people who are ready to tackle the grand challenges ahead. With advanced safety features, convenient tech, and a sophisticated look that reflects your style, it's more than just a car, it's the SUV that makes every journey fun and easy. With comfortable seating for up to 8, an available hands-free power liftgate, and your choice between gas or hybrid engine options, like the 362 horsepower Hybrid Max, this SUV is built for those who aren't afraid to go after their dreams, and it's got room to spare. The Grand Highlander is more than a spacious vehicle. It's your partner in embracing all life throws at you. From daily routines to unexpected adventures, it's up for every grand challenge. Learn more at toyota.com/Grand Highlander. Toyota, let's go places.
All right, so the question that I said, this is part 2, the truth, right? What if the podcast Dreams Drive, this podcast which I'm talking to you on right now, what if it's not broken? What if it's just outgrowing its old clothes? It needs a growing up just like I am. I have grown up, and 10 years ago, how old am I now? 33? 10 years ago, I was 23. Launching this podcast, I had so much more of a different perspective on everything, right? What if I'm not irrelevant? The podcast isn't relevant, but it's just being called to go deeper, not louder. And when I thought about this word, deeper, not louder, it resonated with me because I've always kind of been a deeper person. And I might not be the loudest per se, but I like these deep conversations. I like being able to see the things that connect the dots where others may not. And I think that's also the power that the podcast has, is this idea of really connecting with what your gift is and the power of asking questions and really understanding the why behind things. Connecting with this niche, having this audience, changing things around. The truth is, like, I feel like I've been so focused on chasing visibility, like growth, reach, all these shoulds, that I forgot what made me start this podcast in the first place and what's my why. And that's something that I think about, like, how do we sometimes get so detached from what it is that we know we should be doing or why it is that we started. Dreams and Drive was never really about going viral. I wanted to connect with people. It was more about making people feel seen, understood, fired up, like inspired, reflective, seeing the power in people's journeys and people's stories. And it made me think even further, and you might want to do this in your own life if you're ever feeling like, why am I stuck? Sometimes you have to go back to why you even started. And I had to go back and think about those early days in 2015 when I had the idea and what was inspiring me. So let me take you guys back. So when I graduated from Princeton in 2013, it was like the world of blogging. Like, I was working this nonprofit job, doing some stuff there. I'd always been a storyteller, loved interviewing people. I did that as part of my senior thesis at Princeton, wrote a whole 112-page senior thesis about policing in Orange, New Jersey, where I did these in-depth conversations. I really learned the art of the interview and the cultural sociology behind interviewing and studying people, places, and things. And so I've always been fascinated by people and how they became to what they are and how they see the world and how their seeing of the world impacts themselves and then also impacts others. I love the internet. I love the sharing of the stories, the feedback. These were all things, even if I go back to my childhood, that I was really connected in. Like, I liked seeing ideas come to life, but I also liked understanding the why behind why ideas came to life. And so I try to think about this idea of like, there's a story everywhere, and you can be inspired by anything if you're able to connect it back to something within your own life. And also the whole idea of why our childhoods are important. These are all things that were like really cool to me. And when I think about Dreams and Drive and just how it kind of formed, I think for me, I felt like I had to connect it to like being a entrepreneur, starting my own business. Although those were things that I also was very big into when I was younger. I think the core of it has really just been allowing people to share a story and finding that point of connection within a story. And the point of connection is what's going to be used as inspiration and not necessarily what that person is building. And hey, I can do that too. It's more about I can do that for how that translates to my own life. I even think about like, this is so important. Like, go back to those early interests. I think about one of like my first big inspirations on the internet was Brandon, of the founder of Humans of New York. And at that point, there's a lot of now copycats of Humans of New York, but he was one of the first people online that I saw just doing these interviews and just allowing people to share their stories. They had very beautiful visuals. I remember I bought that first book, and I thought he was so dope. I remember seeing him speak at my friend's graduation from Kane University in New Jersey at the Prudential Center. I don't remember what he said, but it was just so cool to see how him just being very simple, very niche, Humans of New York, stories from people on the street, on the ground in New York, and how he built it into this larger community. And I was like, wait, I can do that too. And so I built Dreams and Drive thinking that I started Dreams and Drive thinking that maybe I can create stories around people and entrepreneurship. And to be quite frank, honestly, the thing that I love the most about all of this was just the idea of being able to interview people. I think I just enjoy the art of interviewing. I enjoy hearing people's story. I enjoy giving people a space to look within themselves, and that within itself, when I think about, is that a lost cause? I don't think that can ever be a lost cause, because it's always going to be powerful some way, somehow, that skill. And I think this is also just going back to like being able to reaffirm your own skills. That skill is always going to be valuable. So dream drivers, if you're still showing up even when it's hard, and honestly, it's the idea of it being hard may never go away. It still matters, even if it's quiet, even if it's not trending, even if it's just me and you guys listening, me and one other person. Even if this episode only gets 10 listens, me and those 10 people, this conversation that we're having, this symbiotic like relationship, really matters. So there's something that I had to say to myself and I had to reclaim, is I'm not going to give up, but I am going to evolve. I have to change. I'll never realize those next dreams in the next chapter. And that's why I said Dreams and Drive is going to be entering a new chapter, one where we talk about just not how to chase the dream, but how to survive it, how to navigate the in-betweens, how to keep going when the fire dims, when the applause stops, when you feel like your voice is getting lost in the noise, when you feel like nothing's going right, when life is just throwing all this stuff at you. When you feel like your voice is getting lost in the noise, like that's where most of us live. Like most of us are not living this like shiny social media, everything's going right life all the time. A lot of us are in this middle, quiet middle, not talked about middle, the stuff in between. And I think there's value in having these conversations. I think back to my own life and all the stuff that has happened to me while in the pursuit. And what if I had talked about like the real idea of like what it actually means to be in that stage of going from park to drive. So it's not actually how to go from park to drive, but how to deal with the things that are happening to you while you're going from park to drive. And I really feel like that's a new point of connection that if we really dived in on this part, like we can really do some amazing things with this podcast. And there's so much points of things that can be talked about. So like I think about for my own life, right? Having to deal with financial shifts in your life, having to change jobs, being forced out of jobs. These are all things I had to deal with. Being forced to quit a 9 to 5 and going into entrepreneurship full time while still trying to figure out who am I as a person, who am I as an entrepreneur, who am I as Rana, right? Unplanned pregnancies, how to navigate that. And it's not just dealing with being a mother, it's like the actual navigating of what it means now to go from not thinking about having kids to now saying, all right, I'm having a child. How does this affect my life? And also dealing with that during a pandemic. I had my first son, Axel, during the COVID-19 pandemic, September of 2020. It was a crazy time to become a mother, and just what that means for how you approach life, how you approach business, this new reality. Talking about motherhood, like we talk about motherhood a lot, but now we talk about the shift from 1 to 2. Now that's something very specific, very focused that a lot of people can relate to, and how it relates to the overall dream driving journey and what you need now to do in order to shift whatever that dream driving journey is for you. And I'm thinking about like dreams and drive, honestly, does not only have to be for entrepreneurship. And that's also part of this whole evolution is I don't want it to just be people who are trying to build these $1 million dreams, or not even $1 million dreams, just trying to build businesses. I think dream driving can be for any of us because there's something that we all are trying to accomplish, and there's always going to be something that might get in the way along that journey. Another thing that has impacted is like having a new job, right? How does a new job now affect everything else? Climbing the corporate ladder for people who are in positions and who want to like get to the next goal. How do you navigate those small office nuances, the office politics, the things that are said but not said, right? Grief, that's a big one for me now. Big one. Like, how do you go on with your life when the one person who was the person who was helping you, your foundation is no longer here? I think about Kanye West, and I think about like how everyone said after his mother was gone, he kind of went aloof. And I think for some people they get pushed and some people get pulled. And I say that meaning like traumatic things can inspire you, or they can haunt you, or they can affect you in ways you'll never really know. And so I think talking about this stuff is the stuff that we need to talk about, the conversations that we need to have, the things that we need to get within ourselves and people open up about. And these are the conversations that I am really excited about having, and being, like I said earlier, the willingness to evolve and accepting the change, and just saying that whatever I did before is a part of my past, but I need a past to have a future. Think about that, right? Another big thing is, how do you navigate the idea of what it means to build? And that's kind of with the more original dreams and drive theme of like just maybe the nuances of building a team, building yourself, building the dream. That's always going to be important. Friendship, community shifts. We all need a village, but what do you do when your friendships change, when the village that you thought you had is not there, right? If I can help just one person feel seen in any of those spaces above, I think the mic stays on. And I know for sure there's so many of us who are struggling with these things, and I think people want more authentic, grounded conversations. I still love to have my guests on, but what if we talk about these topics with the guests? And I know some of you may be like, well, you talk about this in your show already, but we'll talk about this later. I have to now be, and you have to also be, if you're trying to build something, which I am with Dreams and Drive eventually. Maybe one day it'll be something that I just do full time by itself. It's like you also want to be relevant, and you also want to make sure that you're just not talking to yourself, but you're able to build a community, and being strategic from a marketing standpoint is always going to be important. The mic is going to stay on, and I think my mic staying on, if I just think about just the actual, like the mic has stayed on for the past 10 years is despite of everything is commendable, and I don't give myself enough of a pat on the back. Like 430 episodes is a lot So many podcasters don't even make it past one season, past 5 episodes. It's too hard. But 10 years of consistently showing up, if you have something that you've been doing, even if you don't see the external benefits, you've been showing up for yourself for the past. For the past, however, right? And that's important. And you have to remember, too, it's all about perspective. And you might feel like this in your own life as well. Sit here and think about all the things you have accomplished while still in pursuit. And one of the things I learned from this work is that our lives are really journeys and don't need always to be quantified, because right now we're living on a page, but we're really creating a book. And you need to write the pages in order for someone to read your book one day. You need to write the pages in order for someone to read your book one day. And one of those pages will be you asking yourself if you're a lost cause. But guess what? There's so many stories before this, and there's so many stories to come. So if you ever feel like you're a lost cause too, sometimes you just might need to get some help. Crowdsource some information. Get some validation going to disprove your thinking. So here's a reason why Dreams and Drive is not a lost cause for me, and I know that it can still break through. Number one, I have the foundation that most people can only dream about. I've produced consistent episodes. I've had solid guests. I built a recognizable brand, and I have a real message. It's just not fluff, right? This show is heart forward. It's story rich. It's anchored in authenticity. These are things that a lot of these popular podcasts right now are shifting towards, right? So I have this foundation. Like, you might have the foundation for something great. You're not starting from scratch. You're building from experience. Another thing that I'm thinking about too is like the podcast space is shifting in favor. Influencer as expert, that whole podcast era is losing steam. People want depth. People want perspective. People want emotional relatability. And these are all things that I know that I can bring to the space. Me as a Black person, a Black woman, a mother, a creative, an entrepreneur, a corporate girl, boss B, right? This is a voice that people are ready to sit with. If I really lean into my point of view and I'm just more vulnerable with you guys, so that's what I'm trying to do right now. And I know that this is not a lost cause, because if it was a lost cause, I don't think I would be asking myself that. And I've always been somebody who is not afraid to ask the tough questions. That's a strength. Most people are not reflecting deeply enough to grow. And I want to grow. I know the biggest thing is needing help. Maybe that's my own therapy breakthrough with you right now, is like needing help and knowing that I cannot do it all on my own, but also knowing that I have to align myself with a timeline and start making some plans, some concrete plans that I'm working towards. Being self-aware, being strategic, but also still having my heart involved. I think for me that's magic and impact that will always be important. And I think for me, I also know you guys, the people who are showing up and are engaging with the podcast, we are connected in some way. And I want to start creating even more with you in mind and bringing you guys into the fold. I think that's also going to bring this show to the next height, is just being able to bring you guys into the fold more. So we got to think about ways that we can do that. So here is my takeaway for you guys. If you're listening right now, if you ever felt behind, if you felt invisible, you felt like the dream you once loved now just feels like heavy, doesn't feel like it's right, let me say this clearly to you. You're not a lost cause. You're being called to evolve. The dream is not over. It's just asking for a new shape, a new rhythm, a new level of trust. Like, you have to be willing to accept that, the evolution of it. And like a butterfly starts at the caterpillar, but you can't get to the butterfly stage without allowing yourself to go through that metamorphosis. So listen to what it is that you want, and don't be afraid to get feedback, to test, to make it real. I'm just so grateful that I'm able to reflect openly with you guys, and I hope that this episode of just being able to hear me talk through why I question if I'm a lost cause, but also validating why I'm not can be an exercise that you can do in your own life. Like, we sometimes just need to put it out there, say the thing that we're holding on to, and then do the work to kind of refute, to disprove that, and then commit to whatever it is that you need to do to keep going. So if this episode hit home for you, please send me a DM on Instagram at RainshineLove, which is my personal page, RainshineLuv, or Dreams and Drive as well. I would love for you to just let me know what resonated with you for this one. You can either send me an email, raina@ranacampbell.com, raina@dreamsanddrive.com, or share this episode with someone who you think might need the reminder that they're not alone in the quiet, that a lot of us are out here asking ourselves, like, does this even matter? But at the same time, a lot of us are also trying to do the work to figure out what we have to do to keep going. And if you ever almost quit your dream, tell me what made you stay. Like, I'm gonna pose that question. There's gonna be an Instagram post, and I want you to respond to it. If you ever almost quit your dream, what made you stay? All right, so please, dream drivers, keep dreaming, keep driving, and we're gonna chat again in the next episode, because this topic is one that is here to stay. It's one that's super important, and it's also just something that I think we need to just be more realistic and more open-minded about all the different things that we think about along this journey and the stuff that's happening in between, and having that support of, like, all right, I'm going through this too, but here's how I got through it, because we all have these bigger dream driving goals. All right? Hope you guys enjoyed this one, and we'll chat again in the next episode.